Good morning to all. Let us start the discussion on the patient classification. We will discuss further on taking a decision with likelihood, okay, and prior and further aspects of patient classification. Okay, so now I am sharing the screen. Yeah, you can start asking the questions now. If you have any doubts on the previous discussion, I will share the notes. Yeah, please ask.
So, can you explain the posterior and likelihood ones? I
Yeah,
don't
anyway, I
get
will
exactly.
explain. So on the likelihood aspect, if you have any doubt, please ask me. We will go to the posterior now.
Okay.
So likelihood, see, initially we discussed about prior based decision, where we only have the prior values. Okay, and no measurements are taken. Just based on the prior probabilities or the information we have got from the domain knowledge. Okay, we made the decision boundary. Okay, the issue with that is it is static. It doesn't change with even more samples when we have. Okay, and it may not be optimal at all. So it is not adapted to the based on the samples at hand. So then we discussed about likelihood based decision. Here, what aspects we discussed is rather than taking a decision with comparison, like in nearest neighbor classifier, we said the decision has to be a summarized or overall decision based on the inference of all the measurements we have for all the class samples. And we have formulated a probabilistic way of summarizing the information of statistics of the class 1 samples or the distribution of class 1 samples with different features we have quantified as histograms, okay, or the likelihoods. And subsequently we also did the same for class 2, class 3 and so on we can do. And using them we said we will take a decision now. So the decision rule here is, what is the decision rule here? Using the likelihoods, you put X into that category where, wish to hear a quick answer. Is recording happening?
Yes, sir, it's happening.
Okay, fine, good. So what is the decision rule in likelihood based decision?
So where probability of X by omega 1 is.
See, when I ask a question, it is better to answer in words. Okay, then you bring in the expressions. When I ask specifically on the expression, you bring in the expression. Otherwise, please answer in words. Yeah,
So
we put it right.
If the likelihood of omega 1 for that particular X is higher, then we'll classify it as in the class omega 1. Otherwise, we'll classify it as omega 2.
Right. Among the different class likelihoods, whichever class likelihood is higher, we put that measurement X, okay, the sample with that measurement X to that category. Okay. So this can be extended to even more than 2 classes. And these likelihoods are again densities. And as you can see here, the density is guided by these rules. So if you find out the, integral over this, okay, overall distribution should be 1. That means the number of samples are 1. Total number of samples will be spread out in this, okay, across this feature X. Okay, so that's only will happen, right? And there is no rule as such between P of X given omega 1 and P of X given omega 2. Okay, so these can fall in any manner. One will not constrain or guide the other. Okay, both in that sense, okay, can be in any manner. Fine. So the density of class 1 samples can go in whatever manner. It may say it may be like this, okay, or it may be say the class 2 can be like this, or in any manner. Okay, so that, but the integral or the sum of all the count of samples from of class 1 across different features is 1. Okay, or total number of samples in class 1. Okay, so that is guided by this. Okay, is this clear? This is the decision rule now. Fine. Then what we said, we just thought of giving a numerical example, okay, to understand this better. And we said the case where like features can be only one feature or two features. Even in that case, same rule can be applied. That's what I have said. Okay. Now, as a numerical example, we discussed about, we gave a likelihood of class 1 is modeled as normal density with zero mean and unit variance. Likelihood of class 2 is normal density with unit mean and unit variance. Okay, this is the first case, first example. Let us first complete this example, discuss this example. Now I need an answer on decision boundary, okay, and decision rules. For example 1, let us take example 1. You people might have solved it, but quickly I request the answer to be seen by all. Yeah, so I just want to find the decision boundary. What are all important for us to find is, where is decision boundary? In this case, and decision rule. Okay, these two we wish to see in this special case, in this example. Yeah, any answers before I do all the little bit of sketch and other things? Any answer on the decision boundary?
It's at x equals 1 by 2.
X equal to 1 by 2. Very good. Okay, and then decision rule?
If x is less than 1 by 2, then it is of omega 1 class, else it is omega 2.
Right. X is less than half. Okay, and then x belongs to else. X belongs to omega 2. Very good. This is very straightforward and simple decision rule and decision boundary, because in this case you can see, okay, this is first normal density. Okay, that is P of x given omega 1. And the second density, if you see, it will have same variance. It exactly has the same variance. Okay, and hence the same shape. Okay, but what is the difference between first one and second one? What is the difference between first one and second one?
So mean is different.
Yeah, shift in the mean value, right? So this is our 0, this is our 1. Okay, and hence these are exactly symmetrical. What will happen? They will intersect. Okay, at exactly at the, where do they intersect? They will intersect at the exactly at the midway. Okay, and hence you have here. Okay, so this is the decision boundary. Okay, in my case it doesn't look like at the mid, but still assume that it is only mid. Okay, because of hand sketch, it is not exactly falling at the mid. Okay, so this is the decision boundary. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
This is half and this is 1. Okay. So this is for any class likelihoods where the variances are exactly same. Okay, you can easily find the decision boundary. And but what I want to do is, and it falls at the midway between the means. Okay, so this is very nicely seen here, but I want to do a mathematical solution for it. Now, even though I think it's not required in this case, I just want to get familiarity with it so that I can solve even bigger problems. So how should I mathematically solve this if I want to show that, okay, x star, that is decision boundary, is at the midway between them? Yeah, I need some quick hint on how should I start, where should I start this to get this x star?
By equating both the likelihoods.
Yeah, at decision boundary, we have, okay, P of x star, okay, given omega 1 is equal to P of x star given omega 2, right? So x decision boundary x star, you can consider this is the decision rule. This is what will happen. Because the likelihoods are equal there, okay, on either sides the likelihood will be, okay, different. In this side it is R1, where the samples are classified to class 1, and in this case is it R2, okay, where the samples are classified to omega 2 class. Okay, Fine. So now this I want to substitute. Can you quickly tell me how, what is the next step here in substitution? 2 pi. What is the expression for Gaussian? See, both are considered as normal densities and hence the Gaussian densities. So I will use unit mean. Okay, mean 0 and variance, unit variance. Okay, this is the for the class 1 likelihood. X star I will write. Okay, but anyway, it's okay. And then this is 1 by root 2 pi e power. What should I write here? Minus half. Is this correct? Any mistake here?
Sir, one more two you wrote in the denominator.
Yeah, is not needed. Correct. Very good. Okay, and hence this is what we just solve. Okay, to get the next step. So these are all cancels out, and then x star square is equal to x star minus 1 whole square. Okay, and this gives us x equal to half. Right? Okay, so this is how we do in general. Now the next question is, do you think that always there will be a single decision boundary in terms of, in case of one dimensional features? Here you see that only there is one decision boundary. One side you put the samples, if the measurement of the sample is on the other side, first side you put into class 1, on the other side you put into class 2. Okay, that's how we is the decision rule. Okay, so but do you think will this be the same in all the one dimensional examples where there is only one feature that we measure? Only one decision boundary do you think will occur? Or
Depending
are there cases where two decision boundaries may also happen?
like
So
for
if
two,
the distribution
if
is
it's
normal, then only
classification-
one decision boundary will be there.
Okay.
But
Somebody said
if
distribution, if normal, always one decision boundary will be there. Is that correct?
no, sir, sorry, sir. No.
It's a you're asking for the case of binary classification, or it can have any number of classes.
So even in normal classification, there can be two decision boundaries.
Hello?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, am I audible now?
Yeah, you are not audible earlier. Yes.
Okay. Okay, fine, good. So I am sharing the screen again. You're able to see the shared screen now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm just sharing the screen. Okay, is this visible now?
Yes, sir.
Right. So I am asking the case where there may not be a single decision boundary. So even when the likelihoods are normal, when do you think it may happen?
When the variances are different.
Right. When the variance of class 1 likelihood and class 2 likelihood are different. Okay. So then, there may be two things. Why do you think it may happen? I need a quick, simple answer. Why do you think there may be two decision boundaries?
If the variance is too large, then we might have one class's probability might be high at a range of values.
Okay. Yeah, that's all fine. Any other easier way of telling this?
So when the variance of one particular class is very less, so the probability of that class occurring is localized into a very particular, a very small set of values.
Okay.
Now, if other class has a higher variance, the probability at a particular value is less, but it's varied so far that it might so happen that at a certain distance.
Yeah, I
the-
agree with this, but I think there is a much simpler answer.
Sir, we get while solving decision boundary, we get the quadratic equation, sir.
Right, that's all.
So-
Okay, when we put the things in place, the decision
Yes,
boundary is solved by equating the things, right? So there are two possibilities
sir.
where these things are equal. Okay, this is one place and this is another place. So, and hence you will have two decision boundaries. Okay, and the other explanation that you people have given are is also correct. That will happen by looking at the conditional probabilities. Okay, fine, very good. Both are fine, but I think this is the easier way to convey the things. Okay, so now in this case also, I will not solve fully, okay, because it will take time for me. But if somebody has solved here, please tell me. So this is again N01, normal with 0 and mean and variance 1. Okay, and then the class 2 density is normal. Again with, with mean 1. Okay, and then variance 4. Okay, what we put here is always sigma square. Please note that what the notation we use is, okay, n mu comma sigma square. Okay, so this whatever I have put here is used usually for, okay, sigma square, not for sigma. That you should be clear. So standard deviation is 2, where the variance is 4. And hence, since standard deviation is 2, I will write here 2. Okay, the expression for Gaussian is what? 1 by root 2 pi sigma e power. So expression for Gaussian should be very, very well known to you. Okay, I will be keep using it several places. Both the univariate case and the multivariate case, Gaussian expressions. Okay, so now I will solve this to get the decision boundaries. So did anybody solve this and got some decision boundaries? I need answers if somebody has solved it. Anybody has done it? No, you can say if somebody has not done it.
No.
If anybody has
No, sir.
no, fine, good. Okay, so I will put now tentatively some values. Okay, 0.7 I will put.
-1 actually.
Yeah, I think no, we'll put some values. Okay, so -1 I will put. Okay, for simplicity, I have put some values. These are not correct. Okay, tentatively put. To explain the things, I have put it here. Okay, but you should solve and give me correct values. Okay. So I just left it to you. So now, with this, I want to write the decision boundaries and then the decision rules or decision regions or decision rules. Okay, that's my next question. So can somebody tell quickly? What is the decision boundary?
So x is equals to 0 and -1.
Okay, okay, let it be. I'm just leaving it for solving now. You put anyway correct ones. Okay, because based on this, even the plot will vary. Okay, I tentatively plotted and tentatively put the values. In fact, you should solve this first and then sketch the plot. Okay, you can make a rough plot initially. Okay, to get the idea of what you need to do and how the things will be. But after solving, you get a fair idea on where exactly how should be the plot itself. Okay, because if they cut it 0, then I think you were, you know, right? How should it be? So on and so on. Okay, fine. And so now, how are the decision regions? These are the decision boundaries. Decision regions is R1. R1 means the samples classified to, okay, X belongs to omega 1, imply that we consider R1. Okay, if all this, if any sample belongs to omega 2, we consider it is R2. R2 is region for sample classified to classified to omega 2. Okay, so now what we, so here we have actually R1 is what? What is the reason R1? Quick answer is needed. No? R1 is?
By 0.7.
Yeah, up to 0.7, and then R2 is else. Okay, remaining region. I may say that X less than -1 and okay, X greater than 0.7. Okay, is this fine? Okay,
Yes.
this is how you do it. Now let's move on to 1 2-dimensional examples. Okay, and then we will discuss the case of considering prior and likelihood together for Bayesian classification. So let us have defined P of X given omega 1, example 3. Omega 1 is normal with mean 0, 0 and variance. Okay, we should put a covariance matrix here, right? So let me put some covariance matrix. Okay, 2, 1, 1, 2. No, this is a little well-behaving covariance matrix. I have put it. Okay, but if you want me to simplify my job, okay, I will give this little tougher thing to you. Okay, I will put this 0, 0, 2. This covariance matrix, I will put even simpler one for me. Okay, so that quickly I can complete the discussion in class. Okay, and then P of X given omega 2 is again normal. Okay, with mean, so mean cannot be equal. Okay, most of the times it will not be equal. Okay, and then variance, covariance matrix, let it be same in this case. Okay, but it can be different as well. This is, please note that this notation for us is mu1 comma sigma 1. Okay, and then this is n normal with mu2 comma sigma 2. This is our notation. Okay, also the values explicitly are given here. See, I'm nicely putting the likelihoods here. In when I ask a question, they may not be conveyed directly like this. Okay, so I may say in words. Okay, about saying that it is mean centered here. Okay, class 1 samples are centered here, class 2 samples are centered here. Class 1 have a spread of or covariance matrix of this much. Class 2 also may have same covariance matrix. Okay, so something like that I may ask when things are not as they may not be very clearly put in terms of the expressions like this. Okay, in general. Okay, fine. Even I may give the samples and ask you to find the mean and covariance matrices of class 1 and class 2. So that all comes like a more realistic problem. Okay, so if in real case no one will give you even likelihood, they just will have the samples. Okay, are the features measured? So from that, you have to make out what is the mean of class 1, mean of class 2, covariance matrix of class 1, covariance matrix of class 2, and so on. Okay, so we will give you some assignment having at least some variants of this. Okay, so here there may be 3 possibilities. Okay, like we had earlier, the covariance matrix of class 1 and class 2 may be same. This is case 1, and case 2 is sigma 1 is equal to sigma 2. But what do you think is case 2? I said 3 possibilities may be there. Sigma 1 equal to sigma 2, but they may not be diagonal matrices. What is difference between diagonal covariance matrix and non-diagonal covariance matrix?
Sir, in diagonal, they are independent, sir, like probabilities.
Right. So the which are independent?
Probabilities for random variables, sir.
Okay. Be little more clear. Are the random variables independent or probabilities of random variables independent?
Yes, sir, probabilities for random variables.
No. Random variables are independent.
Oh, sorry,
Okay,
yes.
in fact, the features. Okay, if I measure
yes,
in
sir,
terms
yes,
of feature
sir.
x1, x2.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
x1, x2 are independent.
Yes, sir.
Fine. So in our exam, in our context, the features are independent. Okay. In general, random variables are independent to have a diagonal covariance matrix. Okay. So this is one case. This is case 2. This is case 3. In each of these cases, you can see that you can mathematically also tell what is the nature of decision boundary. Okay. So will that be a straight line or not? Or are there any other variations? We will see that. Okay, we will not discuss very detailed on this, but I just put different cases to get the exposure on the kind of problems that you may get, or in real cases you may come across. Okay, so now let us start for this problem. How should I approach now? Should I sketch it first for class 1 and class 2 samples? The likelihoods like I have done earlier. Should I make a sketch and then start the problem of finding decision boundary and decision rules? As you know, what I need is decision boundary and decision rule. How should I start the problem is my question now. Any answer? Should I sketch them?
That graph, like distribution graph curve,
Huh?
like bell-shaped curve, you have to draw for both of them.
But how do I draw a bell-shaped curve? That's my question, right? It's not in one dimension. See, x here is a vector. I have 2 features. So x here has 2 features, x1 and x2. Okay, that's why I have got mean also 2 dimensions, covariance matrices are 2 dimensions, and so on. 2 cross 2 and so on. How should I plot them?
You have to draw the locus of all the points. Like
Okay, so one way of doing it is I can plot the locus of points. Okay, I can do that. Okay, this is centered at 0, 0. Then where is this is mu1 centered at 0, 0, and then there is a spread. And similarly, mu2 is what 1, 1. Okay, accidentally it is centered here. Okay, and hence I will roughly sketch it again. But in this case, see, since the mean and covariance are reasonably well behaving, okay, you people are able to say that you can draw and start. But what do you suggest as a better method for solving this kind of 2-dimensional or more multi-dimensional problems? I think I went wrong. Where I want to find decision boundaries and so on. What's the better way of doing it? Okay, now where is the decision boundary? I sketched it roughly. Can some of you tell where may be this decision boundary? No answer? Okay. So now is there any other way we can find the decision boundary other than sketching? Yeah, you should answer now quickly.
we did in previous one, we calculated some value.
Yeah, how should I do now? That's the question, right?
Mean and covariance matrix is given to you. With the help of them, we can calculate that.
Yeah, tell more explicitly. What should I do to do that?
That formula we have to use 1/2
Right. You.
pi, and then
So to put it, what we should say is you should equate the likelihoods as we did before, because anyway decision boundary, let it be in one dimension or in two dimensions. Okay, at the decision boundary, the likelihoods will intersect. Okay, so the region or the decision, like the regions of class 1, class 2 are separated by decision boundary, and at decision boundary likelihoods are equal. So this is only the clue we have to find out the decision boundary, right? So now this, after this step, you expand and do all that. Okay, you put actually 1/2 pi and then power half. Okay, e power all that. Okay, minus half x minus mu. So I will expand now, but I will give you 1 minute time. I will do here parallelly because I don't want to lose the time now. But you can quickly do, and you can increase the pace to give me an answer even before I make some inferences or comments or answers. You can do your own. I will directly substitute here because that will help me. So to do this, what I need are two things. Okay, in the expression, there will be one determinant. Okay, so that is sigma. Okay, determinant of sigma, that is here. It is 16. Okay, and then what I need, another thing is sigma inverse, that is 1/4 into identity matrix. Okay, so I figured out the important elements. This is applicable both for sigma 1 and sigma 2. Now I will substitute it here appropriately. 4 here. So when yeah.
So the line will be x1 plus x2 minus 1 is equals to 0.
What is that?
So the decision boundary will be
okay, x1 plus x2
minus 1
1
is equals to 1.
Good. Correct. That's correct. That's correct. Good. So here I will substitute them. So if you have seen before, okay, x1 square by sigma 1 square, x1 minus mu 1 square plus x2 square by sigma 2 square. Okay, this will happen for a diagonal covariance matrix with say when the covariance matrix is diagonal. Okay, x1 minus mu 1. So I will directly substitute in this expression. Okay, so similarly it will happen here. Same thing, 1/√2 by sigma is same because both are same. E power minus x minus, okay, mu, x minus mu whole square by sigma 1 square plus x minus x1. Should I write x1? Yeah, minus mu 2 whole square by x2 minus mu 2, second component of mu, by sigma 2 square. Okay, this, if you remember in my solving during the discussion of multivariate Gaussian density, I have discussed. Okay, whenever the covariance matrix is diagonal, this will happen. Now in this I will substitute. Please note that this sigma 1, sigma 2 are different. This sigma 1, sigma 2 are different, can be different. Okay, so I will give directly the values here. Okay, to make my job simple. Okay, and the values here are 4, 4. Okay, and then here similarly the values here are 4, 4. And if you solve this, because see, this all will cancel, only you have a simpler expression, and this quadratic also will boil down to a linear expression in solving, and the final answer will be x1 plus x2 is equal to 1. Okay, by equating them. Okay, so and hence the decision boundary looks like this. Anybody has any questions here? Anybody has any questions?
No, sir.
No.
Okay, very good. In that case, tell me what is decision boundary and what is decision rule. I want first to write first decision boundary. What is the decision boundary? This itself is the decision boundary. Okay. And then what is decision rule? Region R1 is that where, or you can also write x1 plus x2 minus 1 equal to 0. Okay, as decision boundary. Okay. So decision rule is what? R1 is which samples will you put into category 1 or class 1 based on this decision rule or decision boundary? X1 plus x2. You should tell even before I write.
x1 plus x2 minus 1 less than equals to 0.
Right.
And
And
then
this is the region R1, which if I want to mark, okay, with some low shade switch. Okay, this I don't know whether you can see this complete. Okay, so this all is region 1. Anyway, it's very clear here. Okay, so why did we put this into region 1? I can put the other one also, right? I can put the other side of this decision boundary as well, right? Huh?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, why did I put this side? In this case, it is very clear. But in general, how do you find? X1 plus x2 minus 1 greater than or equal to 0 is region R2. Okay, that means x belongs to omega 2 if this is the case, otherwise x belongs to omega 1. Okay, fine. Can some of you answer me? How should I ensure that this is region R1, this is region R2? It can be vice versa, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, so we can put the origin, which we can check the class and the value at the origin.
Right,
Then-
right. We can put mu1 and mu2 and then check which side belongs to which one. Right. Okay, if we are given some samples, we can put the sample and then check which side is which one. Okay, very good. Okay, so this is one. Now, whatever we have discussed comes under which case? Case 1, case 2, case 3, I have said. Among the 3 cases, to which case will it fall into?
Case 1.
Yes,
Case 1, very good. So now we will give you an assignment with case 2 and case 3, and what you need to make out is the inference. Okay, so what will happen to the decision boundary? Okay, when the covariances are as in case 1, as in case 2, as in case 3. Okay, so will they be linear like the linear equation here all the time?
No, sir. No, sir.
Not necessary. In which case they may not be linear. Can some of you comment?
So when
Yes.
Sigma 1 is not equal to sigma 2, they will not
Right.
be linear. Even if
Very
they are
good.
diagonal, they won't be linear.
Right. Okay. In case 2, what do you think? Yeah, fine. Okay. You will check. You better check. In case 1, you can see one more aspect here. Okay. So see, is this decision boundary has also a nice characteristic. Did any of you notice some special characteristic about this
So the
decision
decision boundary is perpendicular to the line joining mu1 and mu2.
Right. It is perpendicular to the line joining mu1 and mu2. Okay, that's what will happen. Okay, in case 1. Okay, it is the perpendicular to, it is perpendicular bisector of line joining mu1 and mu2. Okay, that will happen for any sigma 1 and sigma 2. Okay, so whenever they are equal and diagonal. Okay, just check that yourself. If it is not diagonal, it will not happen. They will still be a bisector. That means it passes through the midway between the means, but it will not be perpendicular to the line joining means. Okay, and it is a straight line. It will also be a straight line. Okay, I'm just making these comments and leaving. Okay, I request you to check these aspects with few examples. Okay, I will write here 1 or 2 examples just for you people to start or probe. Meanwhile, I request our TS to provide more. So this is a non-trivial example. Like this may not follow exactly the statements I made. Okay, but still this has some this is a simpler problem to solve. Okay, this is one. In this case, in all the cases, given the likelihoods, what is the problem? Find decision boundaries. Regions I will write directly. Okay, this is the problem. And then you can consider P of x given omega 1 is again normal with slightly differently. This is also a simpler example. So instead of giving like this, I can directly give you omega, say sigma 1, sigma 2. Okay, I will write next in that way. Okay, here they are not equal. Okay, you can consider sigma 1 is equal to 4008. Okay, two possibilities. Sigma 2 is equal to either 2112. Okay, you can keep changing the things. You can keep both equal, both same, and so on. So I just gave you two possibilities of sigmas. Okay, you can also consider sigma. I will just write here sigma. These sigmas you can make some combinations and then frame the problems. Okay, fine. So this is regarding the classification with likelihood. If anybody has any question on the classification with likelihood, you can ask. Otherwise, we will move on to the discussion on the next topic. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah. Right.
Sir, in the previous class, you told like we calculate probability x by omega 1 and not omega 1 by x1. Can you explain me that once again?
Right.
I don't remember the reason.
Right. Very good. Let's come to that now. See, but first thing is, will you understand or agree that whatever I'm plotting here is always P of x given omega 1? Up to that,
Yes.
is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Because
Yes.
I am, with respect to the feature of or the measurements, I am seeing the distribution, and hence P of x only I am plotting. And
Yes, sir.
here in particular, I am taking only class 1 samples, and hence it is P of x given omega 1. Similarly, only class 2 samples, P of x given omega 2. So, and this I call it as likelihood. Okay, or the conditional density. Given that class 1 samples belongs to class 1, what is the likely distribution, likely probability that x has in class 1 samples? Similarly, this here. So it is likelihood or conditional density. Up to that, is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Now, see, I discussed two different methods. One is using prior information, that is domain knowledge. Other is using likelihood, that is making measurements and using measurements for decision. But see, do you think which is better, or do you think is there any better way of doing if both are available with us? Do you think can we improve the decision making if both are available with us? That is both domain knowledge as well as the measurements.
Using both, sir.
Yeah. So now the question is, how do we combine both of them to make our decision? So this, whenever we discussed, we said it is P of omega, P of omega I, in general, and this is for this, and this one, whenever we discussed about this, measurements, with measurements, what we get is P of x given omega I.
Yes.
Now I want to combine both of these things. I want to get the benefit of using both measurements and domain knowledge. Yeah, do you know any probabilistic rule that will have nicely blend this information?
So that base rule, sir. Base rule.
Yeah. So base rule I can use here. So let me use the base rule, but how do I use? Give me the complete base rule that will connect them. Yeah, please tell me, how should I connect them and which is the base rule that connects?
Sir, P of Wi by X equal
Yeah, better while wording itself, you may word omega I given X. Okay, no, by is okay, but I think given is better.
Yes, sir.
X given omega I
Omega I,
into P of omega I
upon
by what? P of, okay, X. This can be a capital X or small x. Okay, depending upon I measure, if I take only one feature, it is small x. More features, capital X. Okay, is this fine? And
Yes.
what is expansion of this P of X?
Sir,
If I have
P
two
of-
classes,
yes, sir.
then what will happen? P of
So
X
P of-
given omega 1 or P of omega 1
Into P
into
of
omega
X
1.
I.
Yeah,
Into-
I equal to 1 to C classes. Okay, when I have C classes. Okay, see, and just write C classes. All of you agree with this or not? Okay. So now, what is the difference between P of X given omega and P of omega I given X? This P of X given omega I, as said, is independent of P of omega I. It doesn't have anything to do with the domain knowledge or the prior probability. Okay. So likelihood is purely based on the measurements of that class samples. Whereas this is referred to as posterior probability because we look the measurements and the prior probability to make this inference on the class probability, right? That is referred to as posterior, later, taking the measurements into account. Okay, so this prior probability in fact is prior to making measurements. Okay.
Yes, sir.
This prior to making measurements is a making measurements, okay, is in bracket. Okay, but we usually call prior knowledge, prior probability. Okay, and this posterior or a posterior probability people call. Okay, posterior or a posterior probability. Posterior to what? To making measurements. Okay, so this is the distinction, like in understanding between these two. So where the information about measurements is all there in likelihood. Fine.
Sir.
Yeah.
When we were plotting likelihood diagram,
Hmm.
that Gaussian, so we were also getting the same descent boundary. So what we are getting here in posterior, sir.
What are we getting more in posterior? That's what you're asking?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll come to that. Okay, so now see, but likelihood, what we said is a plot, okay, which only based on the distribution of given X, okay, or the feature measurement. Whereas here, okay, there are two terms that are involved now. Please note that it is getting multiplied by the prior probability. See, in some cases, what I may have, the prior probability of class 1 may be much higher than the prior probability of class 2. Okay, so I may say that here, okay, domain knowledge plays also an important role. Okay, I know confidently that even though the measurements are reliable, they are not completely reliable. Okay, so because the noisy measurement itself may be quite noisy. So I want to rely more on the domain knowledge. In that case, I will put the P of omega I may be 0.8, P of omega 1 may be 0.8, P of omega 2 may be 0.2. Assume that it's the case. One class probability is much higher than other class probability. Okay. So in that case, see, do you think both will give same decision? P of X given omega and P of omega I given X?
No, sir.
No, sir.
They will not give. That is one aspect. Other thing is I am normalizing by a term called P of X. What is this P of X? This involves which distribution? Class 1 samples distribution or class 2 samples distribution? P of X. See, P of X given omega I or omega 1 involves only one class distribution. Whereas P of X involves which class distribution?
So
So both, sir. Both.
Both, and the samples it involves is both. It is in
Yes, sir.
fact a normalizing term. Okay, at all different values of X, but different normalizations. So what do you think? The shape of the P of X given omega I and P of omega I given X, do you think they will be same? So P of X given omega I looks like this. Do you think always P of, so this, if this is P of X given omega I, do you think the P of omega I given X is also, will also look like this? Huh?
Mm.
Is the answer X, yes or no?
No, sir.
Huh? The answer is no. Okay, it will look differently. It may look, okay, I will sketch something, okay, it may look like this also. Okay, or it may even look slightly differently as well. Okay, so this is what is P of X given omega I given X, because there is a normalizing term, not just a, it's not a constant normalization term. It is different normalization for different X's. Okay, and hence its shape will be completely different. Fine. Is this clear?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, if I have to put P of X in wording, what would that be, sir?
What is that? P of X if you want to plot.
No, sir, in word, sir. If I have to say in word, what is P of X?
P of X is referred to as evidence.
Evidence.
Okay, evidence is in some sense, what is the density that X takes a particular value of measurement. Okay, that means X can, with how much probability X takes this value. Let it be from class 1 or class 2. Okay, or any other value. Okay, so that's the evidence, that is a normalizing term. Irrespective of it being belongs to class 1 or class 2, we want to see the density of X, that's all. Okay, it is just the probability density of function of X. So it also follows the formula like, okay, the conventional ways. Also integral of P of X or dx is equal to 1 for all minus infinity to infinity when I list. Okay, integrate. No, it is just density of sample, all sample size. Okay, is this clear? Fine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now the next question is there any, like we said, there is a relation and P of X given omega is a density, and hence there is a relation that integral is equal to 1. Similarly, is there a relation that P of omega X also follows? Can you tell some relation that P of X omega I given X follows? Assume that it is a two-class classification problem. Okay, and we have P of omega 1 given X, P of omega 2 given X. Okay, it's a two-class classification problem. X belongs to omega 1 or omega 2. In that case, can you comment anything about the relation between these two, if not on a particular omega 1 given X?
Addition is equal to 1.
Very good. Because X has to belong to either omega 1 or omega 2, right? And hence, if you just sum them, you get the, it has to belong to, certainly it has to belong to omega 1 or omega 2. Okay, so that's why we call this P of omega I given X as a class probability. Okay, so it's not a likelihood. It is posterior probability of X belonging to omega I class. Of, okay, X belonging to omega I class. Okay, so it is probability of class probability. Okay, like P of omega I, which is a prior probability of class label. Okay, so this is also class label probability. This one is not class label probability. It is a probability of a given X belonging to omega 1 class. Okay, so it's a likelihood. That's why we call likelihood of this measurement X when I take on a sample belonging to omega 1 class. Okay, in testing. Fine. So is this discussion clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the question is,
Sir, sorry to interrupt. Like we have a class at 12. Can we leave now?
yeah, sure. Okay. So now what I would suggest is take this context, do the same problems when P of omega 1 is equal to P of omega 2. Okay. Take the previous likelihoods. Take P of omega 1 equal to P of omega 2 case 1. And second case, P of omega 1 equal to 2 times P of omega 2. Okay, whichever examples we have solved today, please solve for this and please come up with the decision boundaries. Okay, and we want to discuss on the inferences of this in the next class. Thank you then.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.